Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. Look, I'm back because Manchester
back.
United won a game. Yeah, let's get that narrative going in the comments below. Mikey's joined me, Doogie's joined me. Boys, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Enjoyed the midweek fixtures. I'm sure you guys did in particular. But yeah, chaotic last night at the North London Stadium as well. West Ham getting a crucial win for them. Slightly undeserved, I thought. But 3 points is 3 points. And yeah, good drama across the league. Also Villa. What a performance against Man City. Yeah, absolutely loved it. How are you though, Mikey?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you have had a good week. Everton beating Newcastle last night as well. You were elated.
We're still managerless though, so
it's lovely. It's lovely. We were all watching the United Chelsea game as well. And it's great.
Yeah, there was a photo of you on your knees, wasn't there?
Celebrating. On my knees, celebrating.
In
a Barcelona jumper actually as well. It's just great. It's just great watching United beat Chelsea when Zach's around.
Yeah, we were with Zach.
He took it very well in person, but then
he was just on his phone the whole time.
He was ranting and raving afterwards.
I think after about the 4th minute, I didn't see him take his head out of his phone. It was like one of those ones where it's just like, I refuse to watch this game. Like, we so badly. But it was fabulous from a Manchester United perspective.
It really was. Absolute chaos,
it was a very chaotic game, but some very, very good Premier League fixtures this week, and a slightly bizarre look to the top 6 because somehow Manchester United are into the top 6.
You're in the hunt,
aren't they? Leapfrogging Newcastle. So today we thought we would do one signing to win each Premier League side the title, because it is very tight. We could legitimately have maybe a 14 title race. I don't think anybody is actually calling Manchester United title contenders, but for the sake of this video, we've kind of chucked them in just to appease me, probably. But we have thrown them in. It's very, very tight at the top of the table, though, isn't it? I think we should start in reverse order. We're going to look at all of the top 6 sides. The guys here are going to suggest a player each, and I am going to pick who I think gave the best suggestion on the night.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So we're going to start with Man United. Do we want to quickly discuss Man United? Because off camera, we were having a bit of a Barney, weren't we?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a Barney.
I think you said that Man United were the 11th best team in the league.
Well, they are on by expected points. I think it's massive, massive props for getting over the line in so many of these games. But I think 8 of your wins this season have come by a 1-goal margin. Yeah. And, Ten Hag winning Manager of the Month in November was deserved in terms of results. But in terms
as was Maguire winning
in terms of performances, I don't think United have been particularly impressive this season.
You're right.
I would say, though, the Chelsea game, and I do think it's picked up a lot in the last month. I thought you were very good for the first 40 minutes or so in the Copenhagen game. You played pretty well for 25 minutes against Galatasaray. But that's what it's been for United most times. It's been small periods. Yeah. And you still don't back them to not concede and throw games away, which is why I was so impressed on Tuesday night, to be honest, because Chelsea never really looked... I mean, there was the odd moment, but there wasn't too much consistent threat from you guys, from Chelsea, rather, against you guys. And I thought it was a really comprehensive win, and you're now 2 points ahead of where you were at this stage last season.
Which is mad.
Which is absolutely crazy, but you do have quite a difficult run coming up.
Yeah.
You've got Bournemouth this weekend, who are one of the form teams in the division. You then got Liverpool, you got West Ham, then you got Villa.
And we got Bayern in the middle of that as well.
And you got Bayern in the middle of that. So it doesn't really get much easier. In terms of what you needed for one signing to win you guys the title, I think you probably need 4 or 5, to be honest, and they all need to hit the ground running.
Even then, you're not winning the title.
You're not, but it's a fun thought exercise anyway. And I didn't really know where to go with this one, because I think you could get another right back. I think it probably looks like you need another centre back eventually, although Maguire's form recently maybe suggests you don't. Is Kobe Mainoo the long-term defensive midfielder, potentially? Do you need to sign another backup striker to Højlund or someone to rival him? Yes. Do you also need to sort out the right wing area? Yes. Absolutely. And I actually prioritised that. I thought it was the most necessary area. Given that Sancho's future looks like he will definitely leave in January.
Ahmad back in training today.
Ahmad's coming to Sunderland. in January. That's where he belongs at the moment.
Now Tony's gone.
I'd love him back there. But whether Ahmad features or not, it's still a big ask for him to come in there and really take you to a title. So I thought about Jared Bowen, who I suggested about a month or 2 ago, but he's now signed down to a lifetime deal at West Ham. Yeah. I still do think he's quite a good fit for Man United, though, so that's a bit of a shame. But I wanted someone who's Premier League proven, because so many of those signings, particularly in forward areas, have come in and they've been project players. So I've gone with Pedro Neto. 23 years old, 5 years of Premier League experience. The one concerning thing about him is his injury record in the last couple of years. I think he's missed 70 games.
It's more than concerning, I think.
And he's actually currently out with an injury as well. But I think at the start of this season, he did seem to be, not just looking like a fits and burst player. Looked like, one of the best right wingers in the league. Probably behind Salah and Saka, in that sort of area. I think he got 1 goal and 7 assists. He's still the joint most creative player in terms of assists in the Premier League this season. That might have actually changed since last night. Did Ward-Prowse get an assist? Either way, he's right up there. And he's been absolutely brilliant. But a little bit concerning about their injury record. He's been out since the end of October. He's coming back in January, so it'd be a big move. To be honest, I don't see Wolves selling him in January either. But it's very difficult for Man United to get in a player that's going to be able to instantly improve them in January. I did want to go down that Premier League proven route. And his XG and expected assist per 90 have really shot up this year as well, 0.54. And considering he's been out since the end of January, his progressive carries, his carries into the area, his impact on games has been absolutely sensational this season. He was one of the key reasons why Wolves started the season so well. He does have a contract until 2027. He's actually only valued at around 32 million euros, and that's by Transfermarkt. Transfermarkt are mental. Like that, he would definitely cost at least 50 million pounds to sign him in January. But I think he is the sort of caliber of player, Premier League proven, that you should be looking at. But I just don't think you're gonna. I don't think you're gonna get anyone in January.
I kind of agree, and I'm a little bit surprised you've gone down the right wing route. I know that Anthony has not started the season well, but obviously without the pre-season, I think that didn't help him. I also think there's quite a lot of options. United have got the can play right wing if needs be. Like Rashford can play there, Mount can play there, Garnacho can play there. Whereas strikers behind Højlund, it's like
Martial played quite well against Everton.
Martial cannot be starting for Manchester United in the system that Ten Hag wants to play. The way that he presses is not functionable. But it doesn't work.
Don't you think a striker in January is just even more unrealistic? Like, it's just who are you going to get that's going to be able to come in January, play a backup role?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a backup role. It could be a rotation role. I think Højlund cannot play it. I don't think Højlund can play every game. It's too much for a 20-year-old.
Not so much, but this guy can play as a striker if needs to be. I've also gone down the attacking route. I was tempted to go for centre back, but again, it's just like United do still have decent depth. Varane's not even getting in the team at the moment. I know there's been injury problems, but even when he's been fit, he's not been getting in the team.
What's happening there with Varane? Seems to baffle me.
Not really sure. I think he has fallen out of favour a little bit, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think the way that Ten Hag plays, and we've heard him in press conference talk about this, that he doesn't believe Varane can play as a left-sided centre-back because of the way he performs on the ball. He's got no left foot at all. He doesn't think he's a viable passing option in the left centre-back role, which means he's only a candidate for the right centre-back role. And at the moment, Maguire is outperforming him. Maguire is in form. He's playing very well. You cannot drop Maguire right now for Varane. He doesn't believe that Varane can play as a left-sided centre-back, so therefore Varane is not going to start games. That's like, simply put, it's Maguire or Varane.
But
at
could
the
they
moment
not
it's
play
Maguire.
Maguire on the left side where he had...
No, it's the same thing. He
doesn't
multiple times, Eric Ten Hag has said he cannot play as a left-sided centre-back.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Despite the fact he often plays there for England.
Yeah, I mean, that's where he played his best football for United. I think Maguire is a left-sided. I think that's what suits his game more. But I didn't go for centre-back in the end. I went up top. I think mainly because I think United, there's no guarantees as to how much if United can spend anything in January, but the one guarantee seems to be is that Sancho will probably leave. And so there were reports this week from Sport Bild in Germany that apparently a swap deal could be on the cards.
I've seen
involving
this morning.
Donyell Malen,
I've seen it this morning,
which I'm not convinced by, to be honest. Yes, Donyell Malen now has the same agent who set up the Rasmus Højlund move, who looks after Erik ten Hag. I don't see it happening. I don't think it's realistic. I think Donyell Malen is far too important to Dortmund this season for them to be like, you know what, we'll take you on. We'll take on Sancho, who's not played any first-team football in however long, and we'll get rid of one of our most important attackers. But I think they could consider some sort of deal, even if it's a temporary one, for Karim Adeyemi. Oh. And Karim Adeyemi... Sorry?
I thought you were
Seb Haller. Yeah, I did. I didn't even think about Seb Haller too much. I still think they would be more likely with Adeyemi just because he's been more out of favour this term. I think, first of all, he can play the right wing role. He was really good last season, especially in the second half of the campaign. He can play on the left. He can play through the middle as well. I think his raw ability could give something to this United attack. Yes, he's been out of favour this season. Yes, he's low on confidence, but he's only 21. I do feel like there is, although there's a long kind of storied history of players going to United and regressing, I do feel like Adeyemi could be the kind of player who, under a new coach in a new system, someone like Ten Hag, like with a bit of a kick up the arse, like could actually thrive, especially when there's not the pressure on him. You know, if he's playing kind of back up to Højlund or back up on the right wing, I think he could be really effective. And also, I was thinking about creative players. Actually, Bruno is having an excellent creative season. I don't actually necessarily think that chance creation is United's biggest problem at forward line. It's just a lack of goal scorers, really. Rashford's dropped off. We need someone who can cut in from wide and score, and Adeyemi is someone who can do that.
Goodness me.
But Sepp Haller's not a bad shout, though.
I didn't think about the cutting in and score. I think there's far too many players trying to cut in and score. I think you need someone to go to the byline occasionally and give Højlund better service. I tweeted it yesterday, but he's had 8 shots in the Premier League this season.
Yeah,
5 have been on target. Like, that's the same as Willy Boly at Nottingham Forest. Like, he's just not getting any service. And, like, you see it so often. Like, he's making pretty good runs, even in the Chelsea game.
Adeyemi does create chances as well.
True.
Though. Like,
True.
He does do both.
If you're looking in Germany, though, I think Timo Werner's not a bad option for a 6-month loan or like a permanent deal. I think it'd be relatively low cost. He's getting nowhere near the RB Leipzig first team, and yeah, he's got experience playing in England. Yes, it didn't go particularly well at Chelsea, but he did have still some pretty good games. I remember a great game he had against Real Madrid in the Champions League. Yeah.
Well,
better back up to Højlund than Anthony Martial, I would say.
It's an interesting shout. I definitely think, it just has to be a striker, man. Like, it just...
Should we go with Adeyemi?
I mean, I think Pedro Neto is largely unrealistic. I think outside the realms of United somehow finding money that they don't have, I don't see a world in which Wolves sell Pedro Neto to United, whereas I could see Sancho going back to a Dortmund, taking a big hit on his wages and some sort of weird deal being struck between the two clubs. I just don't think United are going to be able to buy Pedro Neto. I think it's unrealistic. But yeah,
even though Wolves have sold at not crazy prices in the past, like Liverpool, I know it was in the summer, so it's slightly different, but Liverpool got Diogo Jota for like 35. It wasn't even that crazy.
But again, I think during the summer, I would be really surprised.
Also, Jota wasn't as important to Wolves as Neto is.
And I think Neto's right now, especially given his form. I know he's had his injury recently, but prior to the injury, that form, I think he's like Wolves' like star, isn't he? He's like that shiny asset in the forward line. I know that Hwang is scoring a lot of goals, but Pedro Neto has that X factor to him, which I think immediately adds to the price tag. And when Man United come calling, it adds to the price tag again, and January adds to the price tag. I think it's just an unrealistic option. So I'm going to go with Mikey's Adeyemi shout. I still don't think it's perfect, but I don't think United are going to be able to find perfect in that January window, and I certainly don't think United are going to be able to compete for the title. So instead, let's move up to the club that are, the shining lights of the Premier League this season that are level on points with Manchester United. It's Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, so salty. Just because you guys aren't in the limelight. I think they have been an amazing story.
I did see this. Apparently Spurs are the first team in Premier League history to go 1-0 up in 5 games and not win any of them.
Very Spursy.
Very Spursy.
But I think most Spurs fans, the Spurs fans I know, are absolutely loving it. Like, they're playing much better football. They've just lost their best player. There's a lot to be pleased about.
I'm on the wind up. They are.
I think they've been, even with this injury crisis, I know a lot of teams are missing in key players as well, but I still think their general level of performance has not been too bad.
I thought the second half against West Ham they were poor.
They didn't really click yesterday in the second half, but I think they outplayed Villa. I think Villa were really unlucky to win there. I think they were outplayed by Man City, but that's an amazing result. The Etihad, I don't think there's anything to worry about too much from a Spurs perspective. But in terms of what they need, I think centre-back is like the glaring issue. But when everyone's fully fit, it's quite difficult because I think you're kind of looking for a backup centre-back.
Dukes, it's got to be a centre-back, surely.
I actually didn't go with the centre-back.
Dukes,
Van der Ven's nearly back. He's back in the new year. And I just think you can muddle away through the next few weeks. I think, when there's not Maddison in this side, they are really lacking in creativity in central areas. And Bentancur's now out. They need a midfielder. Sarr and Bissouma are going to the AFCON.
Yeah, that's true.
They do need a midfielder. And I wanted some more of a creator because Skip and Højbjerg can probably do a job in January. Maddison will be back in January as well. But I wanted someone, and I just think there's a wild card available his club are having an absolutely miserable season, and that's Ryan Cherky of Lyon.
Oh,
proper wild card pick.
That's huge.
Hasn't played that well this year, but Lyon have been absolutely terrible. They're on to their third manager of the year. Fabio Grosso obviously got attacked by the Marseille fans. I don't know, but apparently Lyon players weren't particularly impressed with his training methods before that. They signed or they sold Barcola, they sold Lukeba, Dembele left, Aouar left, and the most they spent on a single player was €5 million. Like, they were kind of asking for this, but it has still been a truly tragic season, and they're bottom of Ligue 1 at the moment. I don't think they're even guaranteed to get out of it now. I think they're, by XG and expected points, they should do, but the mood is so terrible. And Ryan Cherky's not playing particularly well at the moment, or at least at his best. But last year was exceptional. 4 goals and 6 assists in 21 league starts. He's incredibly creative. He does have, and I don't throw this around lightly, like Hazard-like tendencies in terms of his movement.
I don't throw this around lightly.
In terms of his dribbling, like, people are seriously excited about this guy in Ligue 1, and he's never really got a huge opportunity. I think Ange Postecoglou, you look at what he's done with someone like Brighton Hill. I think
not in a midfield 2-3
I think he's
with Maddison.
I think he's the depth option that can improve. Like, he can play on the left, he can play centrally, he can play on the right, and it's just a good player to have on your books, especially with Maddison's injury record.
I just think that's Kulusevski though, isn't it? Kulusevski's proved he can play. Lo Celso
can also play that, but I just think it's a really good opportunity to sign a player that won't cost that much money, that isn't getting played regularly in a Lyon side, and that Lyon probably would cash in on because they've clearly got financial issues.
I think for me, with Spurs' depth problems, they're all central defensive. Like, I know they have midfield depth issues and forward line depth issues, but Maddison's injury, they still do have, when he comes back, Bentancur as an option. They've got Lo Celso as an option. We've seen Kulusevski play very effectively away at the Etihad, for instance, in midfield. In deep line midfield, yes, he's obviously not the level of Basuma, but they've got players like Højbjerg who can come into that role. Whereas behind the defensive duo of Van der Ven and Romero, it's literally Emerson Royale and Ben Davies playing there.
Yeah, they do still have. I know he clearly doesn't rate him. They do still have Eric Dyer,
but he's not going to play. He's not going to play.
Doesn't rate him. This is why I went for a centre-back. I was considering midfield, but
Mikey to go 2-0 up here, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You haven't even heard the play.
I actually love the Cherky. I think Cherky under Ange would be like, that would be. I was about to call him Poch. I think that could be a match made in, maybe not heaven, but that could be. That could be
it would be great to see.
Yeah,
I think he'd be a great player for Spurs. But isn't what they need in January.
I've gone for a punchy one here for Spurs. I've gone for a really punchy one. I'm not sure whether they'd be able to get him just because he is at the heart of Europe's, maybe Europe's best defence. Jean-Claire Todibo at Nice. Right-sided, ball-playing centre-back.
Just turned.
Yeah. I mean, I was considering him for Man United originally, but I just think United's centre-back options actually are better than Spurs right now, at least in terms of their depth. Like you were alluding to, Eric Dyer just isn't getting any games. I just don't think Ange rates him really, or not enough. The fact that Emerson's getting into the side ahead of him when Romero's out, I think speaks volumes. And they're yet to win a game without Van der Ven. They rank 11th for expected goals against behind Chelsea. So, I know Spurs have improved, but their defence still can improve even when everyone's fit. And I think having that kind of depth is really needed if you want to be a serious Champions League contender, let alone a title contender. Nice have still only conceded 5 goals this season.
That is crazy.
He's overdue. He's
so
overdue
crazy.
A big move to Debo. Like, he's been there for nearly 4 years now.
Well, he had it, didn't he? Didn't he go to Barcelona and then came back?
Went to Barcelona and then went to Nice. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of his kind of, I say Remontada. Like, he's always been good. I think even at Barcelona he was pretty good. He actually has really similar qualities to Van der Ven. Like, he's quick. He's comfortable in possession. He's like a good ball progressor. He's actually better in the air than anyone at Spurs, or at any of the centre-backs at least. He's even better than Romero. He wins 65% of his aerial duels. Like, that's an area that Van der Ven actually isn't so good in. So he, the problem is that could you get him to come in and be like, okay, when Van der Ven and Romero are fit, are you happy to sit on the bench?
Will he take that?
Well, that would be my one concern. However,
the best teams have more than 2 elite centre-backs.
Yeah, that's the thing. However, when you look at, especially Man City, even Arsenal, like Todibo as well, I think can play right back if needed. like there will be opportunities there, especially with Romero's disciplinary record. Let's face it. So. Yeah, I think he would be, if Tottenham really want to establish themselves amongst the elite sides in the Premier League, that is the kind of player they should be going for in terms of centre-back depth.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a good suggestion. I'm not going to lie. I think
They're
it'd be
also-
very, very expensive, and I think given Nice's defensive record and their battle for the Ligue 1 title, it would be nearly impossible to put it off. I think,
Cherky's
Sir Jim
gettable.
is also probably eyeing him as a potential option for Manchester United next summer.
So you're angling towards Ryan Cherky, yeah?
I'm just not. I think that Spurs' most crying out issue is depth at centre half.
Yeah.
So I am going to say
Fair
Tadibo,
enough.
even though it's unlikely. And again, a little bit like Manchester United, Spurs ain't winning the league. So let's get into potentially the real contenders here.
The real deal.
Aston
the
Villa.
real deal. No,
Aston
no, no.
Villa.
No, we're not Aston Villa. They're
We're
third,
Man
my
City.
Oh,
friend.
Man City. Oh, shit, of
We're
course.
we're at the fourth best team in the country, Manchester City. So now
Yeah.
we're into real, genuine title contenders here, because obviously
Yeah.
Manchester City's still the favourites with the bookies. Probably still most people's favourites to win this league
Yeah,
title.
they're my
Certainly my
favourites.
favourites at the moment to win the league
Mind
title.
You look a bit.
I'm not
You're on the
overly
fence.
convinced. I'm
Leaning
recency
Arsenal?
bias. I'm leaning. I mean, even Liverpool. I think it's really, really tight. I think Arsenal and Liverpool both. Depends on what Liverpool do in January, and we'll get onto that. But I think they're both as in with the shout as Man
the
City
gap
at
is-
this moment in time.
If the gap is 10 points when KDB comes back, I think they've got a very good chance. But if it's anything less than that, I still think it's heavy
Yeah.
Man City favourites.
Multi-team title race, nevertheless. So let's
it's
talk
fun.
about Manchester City, who don't
Stinker.
don't
against Villa.
have the biggest depth at
No.
the moment. Like
No.
the bench was a problem, wasn't it, against Villa, and it has been consistently throughout this season. The number of substitutions Pep Guardiola's used has been highlighted quite consistently, not dipping into the bench very often at all. And yeah, we saw midfields of John Stones, Rico Lewis. We saw Oscar Bob up top
Kanji.
at times. There's definitely depth issues there, but are we
Do you wanna go
realistically
first,
going to
Mikey?
rectify
I'll
a depth
go
issue?
first,
Wait,
yeah.
are you going for a depth issue or a starter for Man City?
I'm
in
going
January?
for a depth issue, and this is quite a rogue shout. So I feel like you might take the points on this, but
You never
there's
know.
not that many defensive midfielders out there, or especially ones who can kind of match Rodri's physicality.
Yeah.
And Rodri has been, it has been laid bare just how important he is to this side this season in particular. I know we knew that before, but the fact that their three losses have all come in the 3 games that he's not been there, that's an issue. And like you said, like Stones and Akanji playing at the base of midfield the other night, like Rico Lewis play, like I think there was 6 recognised defenders in that side against Villa. Not all playing in defence, but like that is a bit of an issue. And the fact that Calvin Phillips can't get a game, and I expect he could leave in January.
Surely.
Like,
What's the point?
I think they have to sign a defensive midfielder, and there are a few out there. Going back to Lyon, Maxence Caqueret is having an excellent season in a really bad Lyon side, but I don't think he's
quite a
got the
different style.
Yeah, I don't think he's got the physicality. I was also looking at Alex Garcia at Girona, a City boy. He's got 3 goals, 4 assists from defensive midfield. I think he ranks 3rd in Europe for progressive passes. But again, I don't know if he's got the
Big
physicality. I think there is probably a
Big
reason
ask.
why City offloaded him in the first place. So I've gone for someone who is arguably less experienced than either of those players. So it is a bit of a risk. But at the same time, I think he does look really exciting, and it's Ederson at Atalanta.
Oh, I like him.
He's not a sitting DM, is the only thing, but I think he could be moulded into one by Pep. Like, he is quite box to box, but he has big defensive numbers. I think he's averaging something like 4.4 tackles and interceptions at Atalanta. His progressive passes aren't as impressive as, say, Caqueret or Garcia, but Atalanta actually aren't that big a possession side these days. I think physically he is much more up to Rodri's level than those other two, and much more up to Rodri's level than a number of defensive midfielders who would be on the market. He's really good at kind of breaking the lines with his ball carrying. He's got a goal in him as well. I think he's got 4 goals this season.
Yeah.
He's a really hard worker. He completes a lot of dribbles. Like, he's got good technical ability. He's got good awareness. Like, I think he feels like the sort of player that Pep could mould into this kind of new look City side that we've seen over the last 18 months, where it is more physical. Like,
it's a big team, that City side.
It is a big team, and
Well,
Ederson's a fairly big player. He's not
Midfield's
1 meter
quite small.
90 like Rodri, but he is. I think he's 6 foot or 6'1". He's been linked to Barcelona and Newcastle as well, so there might be some competition there. But I think as a depth option, I feel like he could be potentially a good fit.
Yeah,
Inexperienced, not Premier League proven and stuff like that. But
and that for me is potentially a bit of an issue. Like, City definitely have edged recently slightly more towards Premier League proven talent. You look at the recruitment in the summer, the likes, especially midfield, Kovacic and Nunez, who haven't really hit the ground running. Calvin Phillips, another player, Premier League proven, definitely out of favour and likely to be sold in January. So maybe they'll go back to the tried and tested mixing up formula. Dukes, are you suggesting a defensive midfielder?
Yeah, I went the same area actually. It's interesting City's summer business, isn't it? Because they've obviously lost Gundogan, they've lost Mahrez, KDB's been injured, so that's 3 huge players, and only really Doku of their summer signings has probably hit the ground running.
The non-Premier League proof.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Gvardiol as well, has had a few shaky moments in the last few weeks. And Matheus Nunes is the most troubling for me. I mean, he's only played 63 minutes of City's last 8 league games.
Has he had injuries though?
No. He's been left on the bench twice.
Wow.
He's not been in the squad on 2 occasions. And he's featured in 11 City games this season. He's City have lost 4 games 4 of his 11 games this season, and all 4 have featured Matheus Nunes, which isn't a great sign. It hasn't been brilliant, but they have already spent 90 odd million on midfielders in the summer. But I do think, like Mikey says, I think they lack a bit of physicality there, especially with De Bruyne injured as well.
They tried to sign Rice, man. They tried.
Yeah.
They went toe for toe with Arsenal, didn't
and
they?
then they went in this different direction with Kovacic and Nunes, whose best strengths I think are too similar. I said it in the summer. I think they overlap. They're very good dribblers in tight spaces, but neither are massive defensively. And Nunes in particular was coming off a really poor season with Wolves. Doesn't rate Phillips. He's only played 89 league minutes this season. So they need someone. I wanted to go a bit more physical. I went with Youssouf Fofana of Monaco. 24 years old, 6'1", was actually kind of not playing at the same level as Tchouaméni necessarily, but if he'd been a couple of years younger, I think people would have been as excited about him as Tchouaméni when they're playing alongside each other. This year he's alongside Mohamed Camara as well of Monaco. Monaco are doing really well. They're just about in touching range of PSG. I think they're 3rd in Ligue 1. But Man City and Monaco already have a relationship because they signed Bernardo Silva, they signed Benjamin Mendy from there as well, so hopefully that would help smooth the transition. But this is a guy with pretty big defensive numbers, could play as one of the 8s, could play as the 6, I think, and his progressive passing numbers, I think he's around 7.9 per 90. Rodri's at 8.9, so he's an excellent passer. His long-range passing is probably not as good as Rodri, but very few people are. And I don't think he would cost that much as well, because Monaco haven't been selling for huge fees in recent years. So I think around £40 million, you could get a player that could instantly step in and just add physicality. Because as you say, City are known obviously for having, incredible resources, etc. And they do have an amazing squad of 16, 17 players. But outside of that, it's mainly youth. They don't have a big squad. That's because they've been so willing when players have fallen out or want to leave in the last few years. Jesus, Sane, Zinchenko, David Silva, Aguero, people like that, Sterling. They've just been very happy to get rid of them. So I do think their squad, they could use another midfielder who's more similar to Rodri in skill set if Phillips leaves.
Yeah, and I think Phillips will leave. If he has any aspirations of getting in that Euro squad, then he's going to have to play at least 6 months of football, isn't he, at a team that's in the Premier League. So I can imagine him going maybe to a Newcastle or somewhere like that. I think
You're a big call to me.
Fofana is a good shout. I think bringing it back 2-1 there.
Love it. Needed.
2-1, it was needed. It wasn't a terrible shout, Mikey, but I just think that Man City are unlikely to dip into a youth, a youngster in that.
He's 24. He's not
How
that young.
old Fofana?
24 as well.
24.
Wow. Okay.
Edison's
Fofana has more experience.
Fofana has more European experience.
I thought Edison was way younger.
Yeah, no, Edison's not that young. I think he played a lot. Well, I don't think he was ever. I think he had 2 seasons at Corinthians, then went to Salernitana. Was a big part of the reason why they stayed up in 2022 and then went to Atalanta. But in terms of top level European experience, Fofana definitely wins out.
Okay, I'm taking Fofana either way into that midfield role. Not the ideal fit, but I don't think you can find a Rodri replacement that's just Rodri 2.0. Now we're talking title contenders.
Villa.
Clarets.
Unai.
Unbelievable.
Do it to him.
Most shots against a Pep Guardiola side in the top 5 league history.
Yeah, crazy.
Fewest shots conceded.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy win.
Mad.
They played them off the park, and I know Haaland forced that double save from Emi Martinez, but I think
That was their only 2 shots.
Yeah, I think Man City's XG was 0 after the 14th minute.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know they had injuries, Man City, obviously, and it was a slightly experimental midfield, but that is one hell of a result. But yeah, there are a couple of areas of Villa. They've conceded the joint most goals in the top 6, but a lot of those came in 3 games against Newcastle,
Pretty much all.
Liverpool. They also conceded 3, and I think they also lost 2-0 to Forest, which now feels like a really weird result. But anyway,
Much better at home though, aren't they? Than
much better at home, but they've also got really good depth in pretty much every area. Like I think at centre back they're really strong. Midfield and those like inverted wingers that they often play, I think there's really good options. I think it's a backup striker to Ollie Watkins.
It's got to be.
I mean, the guy is pretty much playing. He's pretty much playing every minute of every game.
Duran can play out there occasionally, can't
Yeah,
he?
but he's only 90.
Yeah,
he's only 90. And they definitely need 3 if they're going to go deep in Europe. And it's a difficult role to fulfill because you obviously you don't want to experiment with Watkins really, but you want to occasionally rest him potentially in Europe in the easier Premier League games. But yeah, he's on such a hot streak, you don't really want to take him out. I mean, he's been involved in 41% of Villa's goals this season, which is amazing. And Moussa Diaby's not played quite as well in the last month as he did in the first 2 months, so that's maybe one to watch. I also wanted a player that can play a bit more withdrawn, play as a 2, playing that Moussa Diaby role as well. And I've gone with Jonas Wind from Wolfsburg, who was a wonder kid at Copenhagen, then went to Wolfsburg midway through the season before last, I believe, and was good last year. I think he got 6 league goals, but he's been absolutely brilliant this year. I think he's already on double figures in about 12 appearances. Wolfsburg, pretty irrelevant season for them. He's really been the main talking point. I think it's easier to get him because they're not in Europe. They're not going to get relegated. They're just sort of bumbling along in mid-table. And I was speaking to a Danish journalist at this event I went to last weekend, and they are very, very excited about Wind and Højlund playing together at the Euros. So one to watch for England. Can play as a 10 as well. I mean, he got 3 goals and 4 assists for Denmark in 10 qualifying games. So he's really, really at it. His shots are up. His key passes are up as well. His expected assists and expected goals and assists are at 0.75, so a little bit lower than Watkins, but that's still a really useful contribution. And I think Wolfsburg to Villa is a nice stepping stone. It's not, disrespectful to the player, and he'd be we saw Moussa Diaby swap Bayer Leverkusen for Villa.
I think he could be punchy, man. I think
Yeah.
Villa have got money. They're attractive.
There's
club.
money, and they've got an opportunity
coach.
to finish in the top 4 here, to go deep and potentially win a European trophy. I think now is the time to roll the dice.
Yeah.
They've got really rich owners. Go for it. And Jonas Wind, I think, is a player that would really add to Villa's depth and make a massive difference off the bench. He's exceptionally fast. He's a good finisher, and he's playing really, really well at the moment.
Could they be even punchier?
I don't know. I've
seen your suggestion.
I've gone for the second top scorer in Europe. They can be punchier. So Guirassy, he had to come up at some point in this episode because of that release clause. 17.5 million euros, if that's what we're led to believe. He's got the best goals per game ratio in Europe's top 5 leagues. He's hitting almost 2 goals a game. He had a very short, quiet spell in towards the end of October and has come back. I think he scored in his last 4 games. Yes, he's playing in a Stuttgart side which are incredibly productive. I think they're averaging more XG per game than anyone in the Premier League.
Even Undav's flying, isn't he?
Yeah,
Undav's playing really well.
Undav is second to Guirassy in terms of expected goals per 90 or goals per 90. It's mad. But having said that, Villa also create a ton as well. Villa are creating the same XG per game as Man City. That attack is really flying. So I don't think he'd have a problem adapting. And also they play similar-ish systems, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, 4-box-2. Tend to be is what Stuttgart have played this season. Villa have followed a similar kind of trend. I think Guirassy, it would be interesting to see how he would play alongside Watkins. I think they could potentially experiment with them in the front 2. Guirassy is not. He's not
work with Ings.
He's not just a goal scorer though, and neither is Watkins. And I think whereas. Ings does have more to his game as well, but I just think Guirassy's at a better moment than Ings was when he went to Villa. I think he's in better physical shape. I think he would be able to play in this Villa side. I think he would suit the style more. And also, I think, yes, you don't want to cut off Watkins' momentum, but Villa are going into the second half of the season where they're going to be playing Thursday night knockout football, and they're going to be, at this point, trying to establish themselves in the top 4 or top 5 at the very least. And Watkins, he has an amazing fitness record, but he has played so much football over the years. He's played less than 3,000 minutes in just one season since he signed for Brentford back in 2017.
Wow.
And that was the 2021 season where I think he played maybe 50 minutes less than 3,000 minutes. Like, he has been an absolute workhorse over the years.
And played lower tiers as well. Which
Played lower tiers as well.
Obviously,
obviously came through at Exeter. And I mean, yeah, like, I think there will come a point in the season where Emery thinks, you know what, like, actually, I want to take Watkins out for this Conference League game, or at least like not play him the full 90. Like, I think that's the thing as well. You know, if you know, it gets to 65 minutes on a Sunday Premier League game, and you know, like you've got that option there with Guirassy. But I do also think they can play together. Like, he's used Diaby in that front two, hasn't he? He's even used Daniolo in a kind of front two as well with him.
Do we think? My one query with this is, Stuttgart have the potential to have a pretty special season themselves.
Yes.
More special than Villa?
Well, if they finish top four and win the Pokal, like, it's only them, Gladbach and Leverkusen left in the Pokal in the quarterfinals.
So only the best team in Europe at the moment on form left in there.
Only the best. I mean, yeah, but still, they've got big ambitions as well, is what I'm saying. You know, they were in the relegation playoff last year. Could they cash in for more money next summer? Is Jonas Vind more realistic in January? I'm just trying to sway you, because I know Guirassy.
He's got a release clause.
If that
though,
release
it's got a
clause is there,
then they
and he wants to, it comes down really to does the player want to leave Stuttgart and go to Aston Villa? I think he probably would.
Does he think
Like,
that he could get better than Villa next summer?
Does he think?
I don't know.
He's 29, isn't he?
Is he? I think he's 27.
Like, I don't know. Regardless, I don't think he thinks.
I think Villa's amazing.
I think Villa's. I think
I'm
Villa
just trying to
is
sway you
almost
last minute. Jonas Vind as well.
I really like the suggestion.
Oh, yeah,
I think that Guirassy is the way we're going to go. I think at that fee, it's worth a punt, even if he's a monumental,
Does he want to sit on the bench?
one-hit wonder. Because I think prior to this season, he scored 10 goals last year, didn't he? But then I don't think it's a bucket load elsewhere in his career. So I think worth taking a punt.
Would you have him at United?
A random attempt to win the league.
I'm not sure.
He's been linked with United.
He has been
Nothing
linked with United.
serious.
I think from the player's perspective, like, going to Villa, it just feels like more set up for him. Whereas at United, it's like, where would he actually play at United? Back up to Hoyland.
Given United's current striking predicament, I'd probably take anything. Let's keep moving up the table. Let's go to Liverpool.
3-1. Okay,
3-1.
I need to get
You
both
need to come
these
back
draws
here.
right. Okay, Liverpool even. I was about to say
Liverpool.
Man United.
Are
Liverpool.
we suggesting centre backs here?
Yes, has to
following
be.
the Joel Matip ACL injury.
Very
I've
sad.
actually gone for a defensive midfielder, but
Wow.
maybe a bit risky.
Okay. I mean, just a word on Joel
Probably lost
Matip.
that,
Like, fair play to him. He has carved out an amazing Liverpool career. Like, he has been immense whenever he's been fit. I think there was a spell in the 21-22 season where he was one of, if not the best centre-back in the league that year. He was absolutely brilliant. And yes, he's had injury problems, but what a servant to the club. And I actually saw some stats. I should have written it down, but his record at home, particularly at Anfield, when he's starting alongside Van Dijk, they've been absolutely imperious. So if that's the end of him at Liverpool, it's a really cruel way to finish. But I do think they need to sign a centre-back. Gomez and Konate have only started 6 league games each. Gomez has missed 5 with injury since the start of last season, just not really a regular. He's been playing left-back recently. Konate's missed 19. You can't rely on either of them. Van Dijk's not getting any younger as well, so it's potential to really start thinking about the future of that centre-back role. Van Dijk's now 32. The dream option is Alessandro Bastoni, I think, left-footed centre-back. Not going to happen in January.
Do you think?
Unlikely
Given
to
that
happen
Van
next
Dijk
summer.
is maybe the best centre-back in the world again, playing on the left-hand side of a back two. We've seen Bastoni predominantly play on the left-hand side, back three.
I just don't know why there wouldn't be any reason why Van Dijk couldn't play on the right-hand side.
Why move?
But because Van Dijk's going to retire eventually, and you've got Konate and Gomez already on the right-hand side, surely they need to start thinking about a left-footed left centre-back option. That's what I would do.
That with Konate's injury record and the imperious nature of it, like, I just don't.
But he's
they
32.
Can't move Van Dijk, man. Yeah, but he's the best centre back in the world right now.
Yeah, but you still need to start thinking about the future. I don't know.
In January to win the league title this year.
Yeah. Well, no. This is an issue to be solved right now.
Is your suggestion Bastoni?
No, it's not Bastoni. He's very unrealistic because they're not going to get rid of him. I actually think the suggestion that I've suggested is Piero Hincapié from Leverkusen. Yeah. He's an amazing player, but he's not in their starting lineup at the moment. Tapsoba's taking his place, and you can also play as a left back. And I think he'd be really good in Liverpool's system because Andy Robertson, I don't think it really suits him, this new style, this new role. He can play at left back, allow Trent to push into midfield, invert into midfield, whatever you want to call it. And he's very, very comfortable, but he's not getting to the side because Tapsoba's playing really well. Grimaldo's come in and absolutely killed it as a left wing back. The issue is with this one is Kosunu and Tapsoba are going to the AFCON in January, so they're quite unlikely to sell their backup centre-back in January. But if Liverpool come in with a really attractive offer, we saw, £50 million for Moussa Diaby I thought was quite a good deal, to be honest. Like, they are willing to sell, and he is a backup. He's only 21, he's an Ecuadorian international, been there for a couple of seasons now. So physical, like really adds to the potential physicality of that Liverpool backline. Like, underrated on the ball as well. Just players just don't get past him. I just think he's a really, really impressive centre-back, 82% pass rate, really strong. And yeah, he's got a contract until 2027. He's valued at around 35 million euros. I think if you offered them 45 million pounds in January, they might consider it. Bayer Leverkusen have got an amazing chance of doing a league and cup double.
Doing something special.
It's probably quite unrealistic, but it's very difficult to find a centre-back that can instantly improve Liverpool's level. And I think Hincapié at the moment could play Van Dijk on the right-hand side.
Left-footed again.
Left-footed. And can play left-back.
Yeah.
This
movement of Van Dijk concerns me. I think he's just locked down that position, but I'm willing to hear Mike's
Mikey hasn't even gone for...
I've even gone. I kind of went tunnel vision. I kind of went tunnel vision on the defensive midfielder. I didn't even consider the Matip situation.
Well, they still potentially need a defensive midfielder.
They do. They definitely do need a defensive midfielder long term. This is the thing. And although, yeah, maybe their depth in midfield is less of an issue now overall, but I'm still McAllister has performed really well for Liverpool this season, as has Endo when he's been called upon. And I've generally rated Endo as a defensive midfielder, since the Stuttgart days, but neither of them are Premier League level lone sixes. They're just not. That's not where their best position is. I think McAllister can be even better in this Liverpool side if he's freed up in that midfield, is given more of a kind of almost like a Wijnaldum role, and if Liverpool are going to go for this title, they need to be tighter. They can't just rely on the excellence of Van Dijk at the back, and the excellence of Alisson, who's obviously not even in the side at the moment, out injured until mid-December, end of December. Originally, I was thinking because he could be on the market in January, João Palhinha, Premier League proven, absolute tackle monster. Arsenal also linked with him, obviously Barner linked with him. But I just think it's unrealistic. Klopp is not going to spend £60+ million on someone who turns 29 next year. Liverpool aren't going to break that, transfer policy. So I've gone for a young tackle monster in Florentino Luis from Benfica, who
tapping him up again.
Yeah, and Liverpool. Yeah, they had scouts watching him in the summer. Yeah. He profiles so similarly to Fabinho. I didn't actually realise this, but he's a much more proactive defender. 8.7 tackles and interceptions per 90.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Isn't
How
it?
mad is that?
It's juiced, isn't
that's almost Kante levels at Leicester. Genuinely almost Kante levels at Leicester.
Especially considering how much of the ball they see as well.
Well, that's the thing. He's got the biggest defensive numbers in Portugal. Benfica average 65% possession. It's pretty
He's got massive
outrageous.
progressive pass numbers as well.
Yeah, massive progressive pass numbers. 7.8 progressive passes, 8.9 passes into the final third. He's not much of a ball carrier. Neither was Fabinho. Provided, I genuinely think Enzo Fernandez isn't at Chelsea right now were it not for Florentino Luis. His defensive work last season in that Benfica system allowed Enzo to thrive, and I'm not even sure if Enzo starts.
Are you saying he's been found out?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Enzo starts for who?
No, I don't think Enzo starts for Argentina at the World Cup if that first half of the season doesn't happen. And he was the foot exactly.
Exactly.
I don't think he does, because Enzo was so good in that first half of the season last year, but it was you had to credit Florentino Luis as much. And weirdly enough, Florentino, he has been playing a bit more recently, but he's not starting. He's not one of the top starters at Benfica at the moment. So I think they could, for a decent fee, sell. I know generally speaking that they do charge a lot, especially in January, but Florentino
gets your
Luis
checkbook out.
Florentino Luis is a really good long-term fit. I think he's a good long-term investment. I think he would be worth it for Liverpool to solidify that defensive midfield position, allow players like McAllister and Szoboszlai to be able to strut their stuff a little bit more. I know they will still be required to do defensive work, but I think with someone like Florentino Luis just behind someone like Szoboszlai, could you imagine? I think Szoboszlai's attacking output would only skyrocket. And I think in a title race,
I think Florentino Luis is an absolutely fantastic shout, and there's no doubt I would have accepted that as my name. I think he'd be a great signing for Liverpool prior to the announcement of Joel Matip's ACL injury. I do think that Liverpool just have to sign a centre-back now following that news. I know that they're crying out for a defensive midfielder as well, but it feels like centre-back has now jumped to the top of the priority list. I'm going to go with Nkape, but I don't think it's perfect. I think Todibo would have been a fantastic shout here as well. If we were discussing him earlier, I think in terms of partners for Virgil van Dijk, that is a scary prospect, a Todibo and Van Dijk backline. And given Konaté's injury record, I think he probably would get maybe more minutes than you would see at Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah. I like the fact he could play left back.
But I hear you, and especially with that new box system that Liverpool play in the midfield, shifting the defender inside a little bit. Fine, we're going to go with that as the central defensive.
3-2.
3-2. The comeback's on. And now we talk about the team top of the table playing really well, controlling the game.
Who wants to reveal their cards?
Why don't you go first, Stu? Because I'm less confident with mine, actually.
Firstly, love the position that Arsenal are in. Love it. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, but top of the league, I don't think they've played anywhere near their best. But having said that, I think there are signs that a lot of their key players are starting to find a bit of form. I thought Jesus was awesome against Luton. I know it was Luton. But I thought Odegaard's starting to come back into a bit of form. Kai Havertz is now scoring regularly. And
Rice is the best midfielder in the league.
Rice has been sensational. Yeah, I mean, on track to become I think probably one of the 2 players of over £100 million to be worth it, alongside Mbappe. He's been absolutely brilliant. Less said about Caicedo, probably the better. But
Bellingham just getting toasted there.
Well, Bellingham actually, I think he cost under, at least in pounds. But anyway, there are a couple of areas that you could look to strengthen. I think a utility a utility defender wouldn't be the worst option because Tomiasi's out for 6 weeks.
When's
Timber's not back till April.
Oh, wow.
Which is really, really long. But Ben White has just come back at the right time. They've still got Kivior. They've still got Zinchenko.
Yeah.
So
I'm in a stronger position.
I decided to leave that.
Yeah.
I also decided to leave central midfield because they do have Jorginho to back up Declan Rice. Havertz, Odegaard, Fabio Vieira can play there. Rice can play in both roles. I've actually gone for a backup to Saka because I do just worry about the fact that he might get an injury at any point. And I do think with Martinelli's form not being as good as last year, with Odegaard's form up until recently not being as good as last year, with Gabriel Jesus being not a reliable goal scorer, I do really worry if they do get an injury to Saka. I mean, he's missed 1 league game since the start of 21-22, 2.5 seasons ago. He plays a lot of minutes.
It's the one position without the obvious backup, but they do have versatile enough forwards to cover that, you would think, don't you?
Yeah, I mean,
Fabio,
you could do. I mean, has Trossard played a lot on the right?
Not
I can't really remember it. And Fabio Vieira, I think, has struggled really to make the impact that I expected him to in any position, really. And Saka's also, because Arsenal have often left it quite late in games in the Premier League, like he's played the full 90 in 10 of their league games, which is just quite a lot. Like they haven't been able to rest him at 75 minutes or 80 minutes. Obviously, the dream is someone like Florian Wirtz or Leroy Sané. It's not going to happen in January. Nico Williams, I think, would have been an excellent shout, but he's just signed a new contract at Athletic Club. Yeah. I'm actually going to go with very clearly a backup, but I think he could come on and contribute. I'm going with Marcus Edwards of Sporting CP.
Ooh. Wow.
Former Spurs player. Was on the books there, but only ever made 1 appearance for them. I just don't think there's that much drama. Like, if you've only ever made 1 appearance for Spurs, like, will Spurs fans really care? I don't really see it happening. I mean, last year, 7 goals, 5 assists in 33 league games. This year, 2 goals, 4 assists in 11 league games, all since the start of September. So he's been really on electric form recently. And nearly 4 chances created per 90. And he's very much a right winger, but can play centrally as well. And he's been excellent in the Champions League. I think particularly last year in the Champions League.
Against
he had
Spurs.
some stunning performances. He is a very useful contributor. Most shot-creating actions in Portugal this season, which is really, really impressive. And he's electric. Very good dribbler in tight space. He's not the most physical. He's a very short guy, but exceptionally fast. At least his acceleration's really, really good. And I think he could come on in games. He could play for Saka in lesser Premier League games, or if they potentially sealed their path to the last 16 or to the quarterfinals, after one leg of their first last 16 game. He's got a contract, only got 2 years left on it, valued at around 30 million euros. I think they could get him for 40 in January, maybe even less. And I do think it's worth sorting out because he is very clearly a number 2 to Saka, but I think he's a player that could make a difference when he comes on.
Ooh. Are you suggesting a Saka backup?
I was very tempted to go for Douglas Luiz at Villa because of the midfield situation.
I nearly went for him
potential-
for City, sorry.
Really, yeah.
The return.
The return.
And Partey potentially leaving as well. But my gut was also going for a right winger.
Interesting.
And I'm bringing back. Yeah, I think it's more fun as well, isn't it? I'm bringing back Doogie's first suggestion of the day, Pedro Neto.
Oh.
Pedro Neto to Arsenal, baby.
Trying to stab me with my own suggestion.
Use his stats against
it.
it. Use his stats against it.
Yeah, I just think again, injury. I think he might be back a little bit before January.
He is, yeah.
But injury is obviously a bit of an issue. But when you're not being relied upon week in, week out necessarily, won't be as big an issue. I think Pedro Neto is that's the thing. Even when you're looking at United, it's like Pedro Neto would come in and be almost the best player at United at this point.
Anyway.
Pedro Neto is Pedro Neto is worthy of playing in a Premier League winning team. I think he has been Champions League.
He's very Arsenal, man.
He's been Champions League level since he was 19, 20 years old. I remember we were first, raving about him in 2020, 21. He looks great then. The injuries are a bit of an issue.
Still only 23 though.
Still only 23.
They're less of an issue when he's got to play, when he can rotate with Saka though.
Yeah. That's
when he's the
for
star
sure.
man at Man United.
That's what I'm saying. And he can play on the left as well if needs be. I know Arsenal have pretty good cover on the left, but he's completing more dribbles per game than anyone at the club. I think his progressive carry numbers look pretty similar to Saka. That's the thing. He's quite similar to Saka in many ways. He's got, like you guys were saying, he's got that X factor. He's a master dribbler. He's a really good creator. He's pretty two-footed. His work rate is the only thing that would be an issue. I think he currently completes less than one tackle and interception a game. At Arsenal, that will have to triple if he's going to actually get along in Arteta's system. But I think Arteta's the kind of manager to be able to bring that out.
And
of
I think
him.
Gary O'Neill has definitely got on playing much more front foot football this season. I don't think it was such a requirement for Pedro Neto under some of his previous coaches. Whereas Gary O'Neill, when Pedro Neto was playing well prior to his injury, had an extremely front foot side in Wolves.
Going to be expensive.
They pressed very, very well.
It will be expensive.
But Arsenal have got cash.
I think he'd be 60 million.
I think 20 million more than Marcus Edwards. 25.
Arsenal have got the cash that Man United don't.
Premier League proven.
I think Arsenal have got the cash that Man United don't. I think Pedro Neto's a really good shout.
This is so unfair given how dismissive you were about him for United.
Yeah, because Man United don't have the money, and I think joining Arsenal is a much more attractive
I've been
prospect
done
than
over
going to
here.
Manchester
I've
United.
been absolutely done over here.
I didn't just decide to pick him after you mentioned him.
No, you can see you wrote notes on him yesterday.
Do you think he's more likely to go to Arsenal than Man United, Pedro Neto?
Yes, much better
There
club
you
at
go
the
then.
moment.
Perfect.
But it's quite a lot of money to spend. Does he also want more?
You
minutes?
said it was 50 million for Man United, didn't you? You just
Maybe
said Marcus
that
Edwards.
originally.
You just said Marcus Edwards was 40.
But then after you guys reasoned with me that he'd be more.
He would. No, he would be more. I think he'd be 60 million.
Yeah.
At least. It's a lot of money for Arsenal to pay for effectively a backup. But who were we discussing last winter?
Was linked to them.
Yeah, last January. I can't remember who it was that we were talking about with Arsenal, and it was just pay whatever, man. There's a Premier League title on the line. Your first Premier League title since 2004 on the line.
Yeah.
Just pay whatever it
and
takes.
Pedro Neto will get you over the line in games.
Neither of you. I'm glad Mikey didn't suggest a Jesus upgrade in January. Just don't think it's possible in January.
And I just don't think
really
there's any
difficult.
point to it.
No.
I don't think the difference is that vast that it contributes massively to Arsenal.
It didn't last season, did it? The striker position wasn't the problem last year.
The idea of signing Tony for £80 million, I don't. He might
Especially
score 2 or 3 more
months
goals
of
than
football.
Jesus, or maybe 5 more goals than Jesus. But I think Jesus' all-round game is probably more suited to that Arsenal side than Ivan Toney.
Totally
So
agree.
I just don't see in the long term where that works.
The bigger worry is, I guess, his injury record, right? And there being a lot of pressure on Nketiah to be the lone striker. That would be where, like, I think
and that's why in the summer I would
dip
dip into the market for a striker that is at the ultimate elite level, maybe an Osimhen like sort of player, and I would just go for him. Like, if you can compete for a Premier League title, you can compete for Victor Osimhen, I think. And Pedro Neto, on the other hand, being 23, like, potentially more available than someone like the striking
So
options on the market. I'm going for
Pedro?
Mikey's Pedro Neto shout. A 4-2 victory
I think that's
on
harsh.
the
Well
day
played, mate, well
to
played.
Mikey McCabe. And I'm sure the comments think it's harsh as well, mate. But next time we shouldn't say Man United are the 11th best team in the country.
It was
bias
dead
is
from the
out,
first 30
yeah.
seconds.
No, it
bias
wasn't.
is
It
out.
wasn't. There's some very good suggestions in there.
Yeah,
Very
I don't
much
know whether
enjoyed
mine
that
were
quiz.
my best, but it's good
Let us
fun.
know what you think, though. Who do these clubs need to sign to take them to a Premier League title? Put it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Go and watch the other Sunday Vibes. They're available in the playlist. Mikey's socials, Doogie's socials are down below. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Auf Wiedersehen.